Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the morning meeting. We have lots to get to, and we will in just a moment. Joining us today, Kevin Walling and retiree Tricia McLaughlin. How's retirement, Tricia?
So far, so good, Mark. Thanks for having me back.
Okay, thank you for being back on two-way. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to run through the Daybook and then have a conversation and get to your questions. So please, if you're here on the platform, raise your hand. I've been hit very frequently in the last 12 hours from people who are supporters of President Trump, who are supporters of ending the Iranian regime, who are supportive of the initial plan with Israel to go in, who are very concerned about the state of affairs. Being concerned about the state of affairs in the conflict does not mean that you're against the president necessarily. Doesn't mean you're against the war. Doesn't mean you're against it.
Oh, did we lose audio for Mark? Trisha, you can't hear him either, right?
Yeah,
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, Mark,
Now
you're
we're
back.
good.
Okay.
Yep.
One is the battle over energy. Israel and Iran both hitting energy targets in the region. Huge escalation. Number two, according to the Washington Post, the Pentagon wants to add $200 billion as an initial tranche for this conflict. That's a big escalation. If you're America first and you're thinking about that, you don't want that. And then the third escalation is Reuters and the Wall Street Journal both reporting serious consideration being given to putting boots on the ground in a variety of possible missions. Those three escalations, ladies and gentlemen, are not positive. And now there's a lot of concern among supporters of the president, supporters of the war. How do you escalate to de-escalate? Okay, that's what we're going to be talking about right now. I'm going to run through the Daybook, and then our two folks will be here to talk about it. And thank you for being here again. Raise your hand if you want in. The president today, right now, executive time in the Oval Office once again. Good morning, Mr. President. Greets the Japanese Prime Minister at 11. That's closed press. Then the press pool is let in at 11:15 for a bilateral meeting. That'll be a big moment because the president will almost certainly take questions, assuming it stays open. The Japanese Prime Minister and the president have a good relationship, but Japan, public opinion is very much against the war. The Japanese economy is dealing with a big crisis because of the lack of energy coming in. And the Japanese are amongst the American allies who say no, they don't want to participate in a military operation to reopen the strait. 3 o'clock, the president participates in a policy meeting, closed press. Then 7 o'clock has the prime minister for dinner this evening, open to the press pool. I'm not sure how much of the dinner the press pool will get to stay at, but we'll see the president on camera if the schedule holds twice today, at least once at 11:15 answering questions. Don't know what the vice president's doing, but I suspect he'll be participating in those conversations as well with the Japanese. Pentagon briefing occurred a little over an hour ago. No real news in there except that they evaded every question about the operation of significance, and it was a lot of happy talk about how well things are going, even though the military operation tactically is, as best we can tell, going well. They did not address some of the strategic concerns that supporters and critics have. At this hour, the intelligence team is back on the Hill. Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, John Radcliffe, and others testifying for a second day on the Hill, this time in front of House Intelligence Committee. Homeland Security, 9:30, will debate the nomination of Mark Wayne Mullen, who will presumably pass out of committee with the opposition of the chairman, but with the support of John Fetterman. Hakeem Jeffries news conference at 10:45. The Senate at noon continues its consideration of the apparently doomed Save America Act. European Council begins a 2-day meeting in Brussels today. They'll be talking a lot about Iran. Supreme Court is honoring Sandra Day O'Connor today. All right, let's do a quick sponsor, and then we'll get to start talking through our topics. Again, if you're here on the platform and want to be in on the conversation, please raise your hand, and I will do my best not to mute my own mic at any point remaining in the program. Cozy Earth right now, once again, if you own a pet and you haven't bought a bubble cuddle blanket for your dog or other pet, maybe not a fish, but any other pet, you're probably in violation of local ordinances. Here's our latest pictures if you're listening to the podcast. Kevin, can you just describe what we're seeing on the screen here?
I mean, where does this dog start and the blanket end? I mean, this is the most cuddly image I've seen all morning.
Almost regardless of what color your dog is, there's a bubble cuddle blanket to match every taste and every
They will
color.
match the tone, shape, and size.
Yeah. They won't customize it, but right off the shelf. Anyway, go to cozyearth.com, promo code morning for 20% off the Bubble Cuddle blanket. Everything else on the site, towels. There's more pictures. They've got the sheets too there. You can get towels, sheets, blankets, pants, all with the remarkable consistency of all the products that come from Cozy Earth. Soft, comfortable. Every detail is intentional, so your everyday feels quietly elevated for you and for your dogs. Go to cozyearth.com, promo code morning for 20% off everything on the site. All right, let's just level set here. Tricia, as I said, I've been surprised and taken aback by how much I'm hearing from supporters of the president and the war. Do you agree that right now there's a big strategic question of how he deals with the strait, how he deals with the nuclear material, that right now there's not a clear end for this? Do you agree with that basic concern that some have or not?
Yeah, I do. And I also think that this is a big question of narrative control for the administration. As far as this, is this another Iraq war, which is what a lot of the critics are claiming. And so you saw Pete Hegseth up there again today, really reiterating what those objectives are, showing that this isn't going to be a protracted war. That's what they're really trying to solve for, not just operationally, but from a PR perspective.
Yeah. If let's say that the strait were open, it would be a different case, Trish, wouldn't it? That they could simply say, we've achieved these objectives and we're going to go out. And if the Iranians misbehave, we'll come back in again. But do you agree that it's the binary that you can't get out with the strait closed?
Oh, absolutely, especially the domestic question as well, as far as oil prices and gas prices. That's not going to be as much of a liability if that strait were open.
Yeah. Kevin, what's your view on whether these the Pentagon spending request, the oil, the energy targeting of energy sites on both sides of the conflict, and the just the reality of the just the whole situation, the escalation, the whole thing? Do you agree that this is a newsy and troubling moment in the war? Not that it can't change, but the snapshot of where we are is troubling.
Yeah, I mean, this is the critical point, and you quote Haley Barbour this morning, Mark, in terms of good gets better, bad gets worse, and I think that's at this tipping point right now. Does the bad get worse, with indications at the outset that you talked about that the Pentagon's potentially considering some ground troops, whether it be to secure the uranium stockpiles, Carg Island, what have you. 68% of Americans don't want to see those ground forces. Republicans are split 50-50. And in that backdrop, you're going to see, I assume, Secretary Hegseth, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, go before Congress for that $200 billion supplemental. And now Congress is actually going to get involved on that front. And that enters a whole brave new world, too, because now you got 435 folks out there with their own estimations about how this war is going.
I don't usually like to make predictions, but I will tell you, there's no way this Congress is approving $200 billion. There's just no way. There's
after
no
record spending for the Pentagon already.
There's no votes for that. No Democrat will vote for it. Maybe Josh Gottheimer.
But to Trish's point, it's going to be an interesting, because the administration is very effective at painting Democrats anti-troop, right?
Yeah.
So if they can make that case that this is actually going to hurt American service members, it puts Democrats in a box, and the president's really good at doing that.
Yep. I'm just going to quickly run through these three, the headlines on these three escalations. First, on energy. 105, the Wall Street Journal correctly says what happened yesterday is a new phase in the war because of Israel's attack on an Iranian facility and Iranians' counterattack. Escalating attacks on Gulf energy as assets plunged Iran war into new phase. Strikes targeting infrastructure in Iran, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia have put oil and gas facilities at the center of the conflict. The Israeli targeting of facilities linked to Iran's South Pars field, an extension of Qatar's North Field, is a dangerous and irresponsible step amid the current military escalation in the region, said an advisor to the Qatari prime minister on social media. So in the run-up to the war, the Saudis reportedly were like, go, go, go. The Gulf states were kind of neutral. The war started. The Gulf states were kind of critical and said, let's have peace. But then it was reported.
Oh, Mark, I think we just lost you again.
Yeah, I keep hitting my mic off. Thank you. The Gulf states said, no, now you got to finish this because Iran's hit us a couple times. So you got to finish it. Now, the Omani foreign minister, who was leading the negotiations before the war, big piece in The Economist, let's put that up, number 109. He says, no, we need peace. Here's what he wrote. It's a very long piece. And he says, He says America's friends must help extricate it from an unlawful war. The question for friends of America is simple. What can we do to extricate the superpower from this unwanted entanglement? First of all, America's friends have a responsibility to tell the truth. That begins with the fact that there are two parties in this war who have nothing to gain from it. And that, he says, are Iran and America. Okay, now, that's what he says. Energy, here's the Washington Post headline on the cost of the war. Where is that, guys? Is that on my list? Yeah, 121, please. Washington Post broke the story, and there are no comments, but nobody's disputed it. Pentagon seeks over $200 billion in Iran war supplemental budget requests. Some White House officials don't think it's realistic. That's correct. Good White House, smart White House officials. Then there's the escalation related to ground forces. This is Reuters broke the story, number 107, please. Exclusive U.S. waives military reinforcements as Iran war enters possible new phase. Donald Trump is considering deploying thousands of U.S. troops in the Middle East on the ground. The Wall Street Journal has a piece about what those forces might do, where the Marines might go, 106, maybe take Karg, maybe go on the coastline to deal with freeing up the strait, maybe go get the nuclear material, or just some of the options that are listed there. All of this leads Piers Morgan, and I don't normally quote Piers as a huge authority on much of anything, but here's what Piers said in response to President Trump's post on Truth Social. Trump is losing control of this war. All right. Lastly, to say this, the president said in his Truth Social post, we didn't know that Israel was going to strike the South Pars gas field, but now that they've done it, and Iran has struck back at Qatar, if Iran strikes Qatar again, we're going to have to destroy the whole field. And both Axios and the Wall Street Journal report, of course, the president knew in advance. The Israelis are stupid, but not that stupid. They're not going to go and do this. And here's what Barik Ravid, one of the best sourced reporters in both the U.S. and Israeli government, says. In contrast to Trump's statements, Israeli and American officials said that the U.S. knew in advance about the Israeli attack and even approved it in an attempt to put pressure on Iran. After the Iranians responded against Qatar's gas field, Trump changed his direction. Change his direction is a euphemism for just not telling the truth, which happens during times of war. But what are the most likely next steps for the United States? Because the status quo is not great. So what are the next steps?
Well, based on what Pete Hegseth said today at the podium, they're going to continue, and we're going to see more firepower today than apparently we did yesterday and the days prior. I mean, I don't use Piers Morgan really as an authority for much of anything besides media, and I think maybe he has a point as far as is the administration, is President Trump losing the messaging and the narrative control of this war? There's a good possibility of that. It looks like a lot of the MAGA base is still in support, but we're seeing that fracturing as well as far as support for this war. But as far as from an operational perspective, I think what they need to continue messaging is how every single step they're taking, every action they're taking is advancing towards those objectives that they laid out on day one, and how we're not expanding those objectives, that this isn't going to be some protracted Iraq 2.0, and that this is going to be short, sustained, and lead to actually our objectives.
And if that's what it is, it will be a good outcome from the point of view of lots of people. But what they said at the briefing this morning, and again, if you're a student of the Vietnam era and you remember the 5 o'clock follies, this briefing was the 8 a.m. follies, 8 o'clock follies, because they didn't answer any of the hard questions. And you say keep hitting more targets, which is what they said they're going to do. If they continue to assassinate leaders, if they continue to hit military infrastructure, that advances the objectives. But it doesn't change. It's not, Kevin, it's not clear that changes the dynamics now. Strait's still closed. Iran still, we say we disrupted their command and control and degraded their capacity, but they hit Saudi Arabia, for God's sakes. I'm surprised that's not getting more attention. They hit the Saudis, they hit Riyadh. So they still have command and control. They still have the capacity to hit allies in the region. They still have the strait effectively closed. And there's still no uprising. And they've got time on their side because the president can't run this war forever, and they apparently can potentially. So, Kevin, what can the United States do besides more of the same to try to change some of the negative dynamics?
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, Mark, you highlight that piece from the Omanis that were critical in our conversations previous with them in terms of our negotiations. I think ultimately the solution out of this is some level of negotiation. We'll still take on command and control, still take on their missile forces, ballistic missile sites, obviously their nuclear program. But the way to move forward on the strait, and again, we're weeks still away from a game plan for actual naval escorts through that strait, is to negotiate to some degree. And I think you've seen the president frustrated and some divergence with the Israelis, where they're effectively taking out the key leadership. Obviously, the intelligence chief was killed yesterday in a strike. They took out their national security chief the day before. And we still haven't seen the Ayatollah or heard from him since that initial statement. So I think the president is frustrated because at his core, he wants to make a deal on this stuff. But there's no one on the other side of the table to do that. And the Omanis are stepping forward, kind of being that power broker again, as we saw in these negotiations. And maybe there's a path forward there where they have obviously relationships there. But again, the targeting of the energy infrastructure, the Qataris, the fact that this is going to have lasting effects, not just in the short term, but they have the largest liquid natural gas facility, and that's crippled. That's a years-long play. That's not just a short-term play. And the Iranians are effectively taking these energy positions out, which is what is going to ultimately drive us to the table, I think.
Tricia, the last week, or maybe it was the week before, Kushner and Witkoff were supposed to go see Netanyahu face to face. If that happened, they kept it a secret. The president says he didn't know about the strike. Obviously, there's lots of, I say, dirty dealings, secret dealings between the president and Netanyahu. Is there any tension, do you think, over what's occurred in the last 24 hours with the president saying he didn't authorize or know about that strike? Or do you think the U.S. and Israel are fine? And add on to that, will Israel hit more energy assets or not?
Well, if there's true frustration, at least from the president, I don't think that he's going to be shy about sharing that. He hasn't been shy about criticizing Netanyahu in the past, and I think that he could do that again in the future. I think that the real question, at least in the immediate term, is there more dominoes that fall? Other of these Gulf countries that come out and are critical. It looks like the playbook that's going to be is really to blame Israel, not the U.S. Don't piss off Trump. Right. And really say you're getting bad advice. And Israel is going around you. We're going without your consent. That seems to be what the playbook could be if there are more of these Gulf countries that come out and criticize.
What happens? I ask you both.
And if they endure more strikes too, to
right.
Trish's point.
Right. So the president was clear yesterday. If the Qatar has such dirty hands, pre-war dirty hands, but now the president's defending them and saying, if Iran hits Qatar energy installations again, he will destroy the oil field. So does he have to do it now? If Qatar's hit, has he drawn a red line? And that whether it's in response to an Israeli attack or not, is there any doubt the president now has to destroy it? Because if he destroys that field, it risks the Iranians escalating more. But it also sets back world oil supply quite a bit. The Chinese would be hurt by that, and other people who get oil from Iran. So I say again, given what the president said on Truth Social last night, if the Iranians hit any more energy installations in Qatar, does he have a choice, or must he follow through?
From my perspective, if there was the political and domestic issue at play, then yes. But the issue is we have midterms coming up. The White House really wants to be talking about affordability right now. They want to be talking about lowering grocery prices, that we've had very low gas prices. So I think that if there wasn't this issue at home, then potentially, but I don't think at this point it's a red line.
The bad gets worse. Yeah. Mark, to your point.
The gas buddy guy, do you guys follow him on Twitter? The gas buddy guy. Here's what he just tweeted. Higher gasoline and diesel prices are now costing the U.S. economy $500 million more every day and rising versus 3 weeks ago. A staggering rise and near record setting.
And of course, news reports about airlines now upping their travel costs right around spring break and travel and stuff like that. Costs on the rise with the airlines. So this is, to Tricia's point, not a great message right now on affordability, unfortunately.
The AP just confirmed the Washington Post story. The Pentagon wants $200 billion. Karl Rove's column this morning makes clear the polls all show MAGA is still for whatever the president's for. MAGA is supportive, not of every aspect of it, They're still for it, and yet Tucker's against it, and Kent's against it, and a few other voices, prominent voices in MAGA. Here's a couple Polymarkets to look at. Will U.S. forces enter Iran by April 30th? Number 117. Again, I really do think this would be a bright line for so many people in MAGA. If you're talking about what could be a tripwire that would cause MAGA public opinion to change, and you hear that here on this platform. U.S. forces enter Iran by April 30th. So that's
and that's ground forces, Mark. I assume, right?
Ground forces. Yeah. Six weeks away. 62% chance of that. Trish, do you think it's that high?
I'm not buying it. No. I cannot picture the president putting boots on the ground unless, last final straw.
Yeah. Kevin?
I think it's a shorter term play. I think it's actually happening. We've been talking about this amphibious, enforcements coming in 2,000, 3,000 Marines. I think it's going to be very limited. Karg Island, maybe the nuclear component, as we talked about earlier, Mark. Yeah. But I do think it's going to happen.
So as I understand it, and I know you two are disagreeing. I could make the argument either way. Getting people on the ground on Karg ain't easy. Getting them there ain't easy, and then once they're there, making sure they're not attacked ain't easy.
These are hardened positions too that the Iranians have,
and same with the coast. And we're far away from anybody going in. Maybe special ops, but no Marines are going in to get the nuclear material anytime soon. So, Trish, I tend to agree with you. I just think it's a non-starter. But the problem is, the president keeps it on the table, and the Iranians know what it costs. If they put people on the ground and one is killed, it's a political catastrophe along with the loss of life.
I think it's smart for him to keep it on the table. I mean, madman theory when it comes to President Trump is you never know what he's going to do, and that's been to his strategic advantage. I mean, but as far as putting these men and women on the ground, we're still talking, of course, as we should be, about the 13 lives lost in Afghanistan after that botched withdrawal. And I don't think, of course, the loss of life itself, the loss of American troops, but the political cost.
Yeah, I wonder why the Polymarket wagers, I try not to think of their psychology because it's so difficult, but I wonder why so many of them think they're going to be American forces on the ground. That's very high.
Escalation, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Here's another one, 118 Polymarket. Let's Polymarket this question of, will the president end the war or announce an end to the war by April 30th? So again, that's a month and a half away. 53% chance that it's over by April 30th. That seems, I don't know. That seems about right to me. Do you guys think that's higher or lower than it should be, Kevin?
I think it's about right. And again, we talked about the other day about the president pushing back the China visit. He's obviously going to want to go to China when this is complete or some semblance of completion. And I think that's what they've previewed. The next 4 or 5 weeks, it's going to get pushed back.
Yeah. Tricia, does that seem higher or low to you?
I think that sounds about right. I pray that we're out by April 30th.
Yeah. This is one Polymarket that I think we all agree they've hit it right on the head. It's 53%. They've got it exactly right. All right. Wall Street Journal story about China. Again, we've, from the beginning of the conflict, watched China and Russia. They've been relatively quiet, in public, at the UN, et cetera. But here's the headline from the Journal 123. The Chinese are freaked out by the summit being canceled. China hoped Trump summit would cement its superpower status. Now she has to wait. The president's postponement of a planned meeting signals that the U.S., not Beijing, still sets the global agenda. So I think it's true that the Chinese, I wouldn't say they're losers from this, but it's not great for China. China wants the war over, and they want the summit on because that's what she wants. Okay.
And they want cheap oil from Iran. Still flowing.
Yeah. Now, Russia's a different story. One of the steps the administration has taken to try to deal with price is taking the sanctions off Russian oil that's at sea for a month. That's rewarding Putin. Again, it's only a month. Scott Bessent's defended it as a short-term move. It's been reported now by several news organizations that Russia is aiding the Iranians in a variety of ways. It's been reported this morning, I think by the FT, that Russia is also trying to now help Cuba on its last legs by helping them with aid, energy aid and other aid. Kevin, we're trying to make a deal between Putin, who's opposing us at every turn, as always, and Zelensky, who's one of the few American allies willing to help us with our effort against Iran. Does Russia's behavior vis-a-vis Iran do anything to impact the negotiations for the Ukraine-Russia peace deal?
I think it could. I think this could finally really piss off the president. And I think he's been trying to be diplomatic to give space to Putin, who I don't think is ever interested in a deal. We've talked about this for months now on the morning meeting and across our programs. But I do think that the element of them providing tactical assistance to the Iranians targeting our troops right now, while at the same time, to your point, Zelensky is providing anti-drone support to us and the technology is necessary. While also at the same time, and this has gone underreported, the Ukrainians are taking much more land back from the Russians as part of this. And they've been on the offensive. And again, you have the Europeans also concerned that the war in Iran is a distraction to the Ukrainians. They're doing the work of the world right now, supporting us in Iran and obviously taking land back, their own land back from Russia. So Zelensky is our champion and will continue to be, and we need to uplift that. You saw Rick Scott out there, Republican from Florida, saying Russia is the enemy, Putin is the enemy. Thank God for Zelensky.
Tricia, do you agree this could change the president's point of view about the balance of power between Ukraine and Russia?
I think Kevin makes great points, but I also think that the president's analysis is he doesn't want to be fighting war on both fronts. And I think Vladimir Putin sees that as well and sees that as a potential weakness. But I mean, of course, that's only going to embolden him to either provide that actual functional support and intelligence as well as diplomatic support.
All right. One more thing on the war, and then we'll talk about it.
Mark, let's not forget, Putin is a creature of the Cold War, and our support of the Afghans during their incursion at the last throes of the Soviet Union. Putin is salivating at the fact that he can somehow make this war continue on and hurt us, which is a distraction, obviously, for what's going on in Ukraine and Europe.
Two more things. Thank you for that. Two more things on the war. First of all, will the president embarrass his friend, the new Japanese prime minister, today? Or will he let her off the hook? What do you guess, Tricia?
It's President Trump. I don't think. I think that there's a good possibility.
Good possibility he lets her off the hook?
No,
or embarrasses
her. To her. Yes.
Okay, Kevin, do you choose embarrass or off the hook?
I think she's off the hook. They've got a great relationship. They both love Shinzo. I don't think he does that. And again, Japan is a very delicate position post World War II that it's very hard for them to engage when it's not in their own national interest when it comes to deploying the military. Yeah. Hopefully he understands that.
Well, the Constitution's, as you know, beyond national interest. They have to be threatened and
yeah, exactly right. It's like the highest bar possible.
Yeah. So I think Trish, I agree with Kevin. He's going to let her off the hook. But you're right. Anything could happen. We'll see. The president's a bit of a sexist. He's more likely to let a woman off the hook. That's just a reality. All right, last thing on the war. Joe Kenson, did his thing with Tucker yesterday, 2 hours. He's talking to Candace today. And now it's been reported that he was under investigation as a leaker by the Justice Department even before he quit. We talked this week about, since the Ken thing broke, about whether this is a sustaining story for real people or just an inside the Beltway insider media story. Kevin, given the two developments, what he said to Tucker and the alleged investigation, are you revising and extending? Do you think the Ken story has legs, or it's pretty much not a genuine story?
I don't know necessarily. I'm really actually interested to hear Tricia, because I think, as a Democrat, no one really knows who Joe Kent is. I think he ran for Congress a few times, lost. Obviously, he's a darling of the right. But Tricia, I'm more interested in your opinion. Does this have sea legs on the right and fuel that narrative in terms of the fracturing of MAGA on this?
I think it personally does. Joe Kent is very popular in the Tucker circles. And I mean, I felt like it was a little bit cheap that he immediately goes out and goes straight to the media. I think if you disagree with the president and you feel that you privately express that and then can't actually execute on what the president has decided, then you should leave. I think that is a good decision. But I think to go out and write this long, scathing letter about how the Israel lobby is actually controlling the president and controlling the administration's positions on foreign policy, I think is pretty cheap, especially when the president has given you that opportunity and that position. But, I'm not in the room. I don't know if there was actually leaking going on. I don't also, he said a lot on Tucker last night, as far as he alluded to the fact that Israel or our adversaries may have been involved in the killing of Charlie Kirk. Those are great and grave claims to make. He also said that the investigation that his counterterrorism center wanted to conduct was basically thwarted. Another grave claim to make. So I think that this does have legs, Kevin, and I think that we'll continue. We'll see some fracturing of the base on this issue.
I continue. One other thing, Trish, I was just going to say too. Do you think it's also, now that we know that there is an investigation, obviously the administration, the president said he's a leaker and stuff like that. Is this almost also an act of self-preservation, trying to get out ahead? Everyone's talking about this letter and the accusations and things like that. Almost self-preservation now to get out ahead of the narrative, saying, "Oh no, I'm not guilty of this, and now I'm being persecuted."
It sure seems like it. Just as far as Caroline Leavitt's statement was very strong against this Taylor Budowich, who, of course, was a previous deputy chief of staff for the president. He came out saying that he's a prolific leaker and that he was cut out of these highly classified briefings, didn't have a seat at the table with the president. He might see this as his exit. He's able to maintain his anti-war credibility, and we'll see if he goes on to run for something else or become a podcast host or a frequent guest of Tucker's.
My two favorite adjectives to describe accused leakers are prodigious and promiscuous. I like those two. I continue to believe the vice president is really imperiled, not just if he wants to run for president, but just his whole constellation of relationships. He talked, I believe, unbidden about Joe Kent yesterday in Michigan. A weird thing to talk about on the campaign trail. And it still really hasn't been, and he said he's downplayed how well he knew Joe Kent. And yet it still hasn't really been explained why Monday, on the eve of Kent's resignation, he was meeting at the vice president's residence to talk about his potential resignation with
Director Gabbard,
with Tulsi Gabbard. So I've said for a long time, and I'm still doing my reporting on this. I haven't had a chance to write it up yet. The prospects of his being the nominee are really being squeezed. I still think he's easily the front runner in 28, but they're really being squeezed by all this stuff. And his failure to denounce Tucker is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. Tucker's son works for the vice president. They're very good friends. I don't think he'd be vice president if it weren't for Tucker. So there's a lot going on in that relationship. But I'm telling you, there are a lot of people in the party, not just the establishment, who really want him to clarify more what he thinks about Kent and Tucker and the whole thing. All right,
Mark. One question for you in terms of reporting: do you think that serves the fact that the president is so pivoting to Marco? You saw it with the Taoiseach, where Marco was answering questions in the Oval, the Irish Prime Minister, and not really the vice president. Is that a reflection too of the president saying, "I'm going to elevate Marco a little bit now because I'm a little ticked at JD"? Or who knows?
No, I think he's elevating Marco because he likes performance, and Marco's performance has been so widely acclaimed, and he wants there to be excitement and activity and competition because that's what he likes. But I don't think to the extent he's leaned very favorably towards Marco, and he has in a lot of high profile circumstances. I don't believe that has to do with the Tucker stuff. I believe that has to do with other reasons. I'll have more to say about that soon. Let's talk about.
We just got to know who's getting those. We just got to know who's getting those shoes, those dress shoes. I think that's a clear indication.
That's all that matters.
Who the president is supporting right now.
Does Florsheim make women's shoes?
Oh, not that I'm aware of.
No.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I haven't seen any female cabinet members. No Tulsi Gabbard wearing them.
Kind of unfair. All right. Pam Bondi went up on the Hill yesterday with Todd Blanche, and they briefed the House committee, not under oath, on Epstein, as there's been a bipartisan vote to subpoena her. The chairman seems to be tilting pro Bondi in this fight. The Democrats' main reaction to the briefing was it wasn't good enough and she needs to do it under oath. We could go a lot of directions on this, but I'll ask it this way.
And with cameras too, not just
with cameras,
under oath,
but here's the headline from Axios: Enraged Democrats threaten Bondi with impeachment contempt after outrageous briefing. I do like the paradoxical meta funhouse question of whether Pam Bondi's Justice Department would prosecute her for contempt of Congress.
Right? Yeah.
Will she testify under oath? Yes or no, Tricia?
I think that she will. She obviously in that gaggle was not she didn't say really one way or the other. She just said that she would follow the law. But I did think it was interesting. I mean, even CNN's reporters were saying that this was a lot of theatrics from Democrats in that closed door meeting, that they weren't actually asking substantive questions, that they were really just complaining. And yet, Bondi and Blanche went out there, and then it really did seem like it was a race to the press who could control the narrative. But I do think politically, it's not good for the American people, but politically, it is good for Democrats to purport that there's some sort of cover up going on, and they want to continue that narrative.
Yeah. Kevin, will she testify under oath?
I do. I spent a lot of time with the AG before she was in that position on Fox debating. I think she relishes this kind of back and forth. And I think she often performs well. And again, for that audience of one, which is the president.
All right. Chairman Powell yesterday said for the first time something contrary to what the Trump administration believed. They thought he'd leave when his term as chair was up because he could stay on for another couple of years, keeping the president from filling his seat, as very few former chairs, I think only one former chair did, they have an unexpired term to be on the Fed, but their term as chair is up. He said yesterday he's going to stay on unless the investigation that's going on at the Justice Department is done. Tom Tillis says he won't allow Kevin Warsh to be confirmed until that investigation is done. Here's the Wall Street Journal headline. Trump wants Powell out. Powell is digging in. The Fed chair says he will stay on the board until the Justice Department probe ends and maybe longer. Kevin, your other friend from Fox, Judge Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. attorney, says she's not dropping the case. She's going to appeal a recent ruling that blocked them from certain information they wanted from the Fed. The president wants Warsh confirmed. He wants Powell to leave the Fed. Why wouldn't the investigation be dropped, Kevin?
That's a great question. And again, I think more heat is going to be on my old friend, Judge Jeanine, on this. I'm also surprised that obviously we're 2 months out that Tim Scott, my own home state senator, chair of the banking committee, hasn't scheduled anything yet. I think that's a pressure point, right? This guy is super compelling, Kevin Warsh.
I think they haven't submitted the paperwork yet. I think that's
okay. So that's the delay then. Yeah. Because again, I think that's also going to be another pressure point is when he testifies. And I think he's going to make the case effectively. And I'm sure that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. But I think Judge Jeanine is off the reservation a little bit here.
Yeah. Trish, I can't understand. I think they were holding out the investigation to pressure Powell to leave, to say until you agree to leave, and maybe they'll wait and then drop it. But isn't the only solution here and an easy solution? It's not a great investigation. Let's be honest. Shouldn't she just announce we're done and Warsh gets confirmed and Powell leaves? Isn't that the way they should do it? Or do they think there's some risk that if they drop it, Powell will double cross them and stay?
Well, I think that this is an audience of one question as well. What does the president want?
Yeah.
This is obviously an investigation that it seems like there's some personal animus there. But the other piece of this for Powell himself is this is legacy. This is, I'm not going to take this lying down. I'm going to stick it, whatever he does next. This is something he's going to carry with him. So I think that he's probably smart to say he's not going to leave until the investigation concludes.
Right, but how does it end?
Well, I think that is a question for the president. I think Kevin's friend, Judge Jeanine, will be smart to consult with the president before making any major decisions on it.
Right. All right. I just think it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like there's a solution.
To your point, it's having the opposite effect. They want him gone, and it's just emboldening him.
Right. Yeah. All right. Mark Wayne Mullins vote. It looks like he'll be confirmed. Is Fetterman said on the record he's going to vote for the confirmation of Mark Wayne Mullins? Does anybody know?
I know he said he's going to vote on the floor, and I assume that also means he's going to vote in committee.
All right, so he'll have the votes to be confirmed. Tricia, what did we learn yesterday about Mark Wayne Mullins that speaks to his capacity to do what you know well is an extremely difficult job? Massive agency, lots of different, sub-departments and massive department, lots of different sub-agencies. What did we learn about his capacity to do the job yesterday?
Yeah, I thought he was forceful, but he was also very measured in his approach. I thought I was bummed on how Rand Paul handled the opening and handled his line of questioning. I felt like it was petty politics and just a perfect example of how Republicans can't seem to get out of their own dang way. I can speak personally. Homeland Security has not had a lot of good headlines in the last few months, and we could really use a fresh start. I think what could have been the headlines there was Mark Wayne Mullins discussion of President Trump and how much he helped him and his son and his family and his testament to his family, and kind of this new chapter being open for Homeland Security, how he's going to be a great leader for ICE and CBP, but also the 23 other component agencies that he's going to have to lead, and how he has, the executive ability to carry out this job. And I think instead, so many of the headlines we're talking about the personal petty squabble between Rand Paul and Markwayne Mullin.
Do you think the media will give him, if he is confirmed, it looks like he will be, do you think the media will give him a fresh start? As you know better than anyone, the coverage of the department has been relentlessly negative for months. Do you think if he's confirmed that he's got a chance to get, somewhat positive or neutral coverage, or no?
I think so. I think in the first month of the Trump administration, I started on January 20th, and I would say until probably mid-February, we were given a fair amount of neutral coverage. And then from there, it started to becoming an all-out battle.
Yeah. Kevin, he's pretty popular personally with a lot of Democrats in the Senate. Do you think he'll get on final passage more than 3 Democratic votes?
I think so. It's interesting. I went back and looked up. Secretary Noem got 59 votes in favor. I wonder, Tricia, Mark, do you think over under? Does Mark Wayne get more or less?
Fewer
Fewer than 59. Okay,
I just think that the animus is there, and I mean, Department of Homeland Security is still shut down.
Despite collegiality between the senators, Marco got 99-0 on his appointment.
I think some of these senators are going to also view this as a vote for ICE or for CBP. And that's something that they don't want to have on their record.
Yeah, exactly right. That's, I think, the big dynamic of why I don't think I don't know that he'll get any votes besides Fetterman amongst the Democrats. And I think Rand Paul is becoming the first senator either ever or in a long time to vote against a fellow senator nominated by the president of his own party. And Tricia, I'll only say I can guarantee you've never had a cracked rib, have you?
I haven't had a cracked rib.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a horrible story he told. And look, Markwayne Mullin shouldn't have said that. But gosh, I mean, really, it just rubbed me the wrong way. That's how we're going to start this. Department of Homeland Security has been through so much crap. It's politically had been very tumultuous for Republicans, and we're just going to give ourselves another black eye. No thanks.
I will say
that's why that interview you had, Mark, with Chairman Paul was so interesting a week ago, where it's like, buckle up, tune in.
I will say, and I said this last night, and I say this respectfully to you, Tricia, if you've had a cracked rib, you can understand why he started that way. And I don't think it was personal, and I don't think it was gimmicky or unsubstantive. I think he believes, as anyone who's had a cracked rib would, that someone who would mock someone with fractured ribs would they'd question whether they had the temperament to lead anything or anyone, let alone hundreds of thousands of employees in the national security of America. It speaks to temperament for Senator Paul and for anyone else who's had a broken rib. All right, lastly,
and he spoke to the larger narrative around political violence too, talking about Gabby Giffords, talking about the attack on the baseball field and Steve Scalise.
Yep. All right, lastly, hold on. Senator Mullin advances out of committee 8-7. Rand Paul votes no, and Fetterman votes yes. So he goes to the floor with a favorable vote.
That's pretty quick. That was at 9:30. Wow.
Yeah,
that was a quick turnaround.
Chairman Paul, he moves things along. Lastly, California Democrats are freaking out. The latest poll in the governor's race shows once again the Democrats are in real danger of not getting a candidate in the final 2 of the way the California races work. The final 2, the top 2, regardless of party in the primary, go on to the general election. And right now, in the latest poll from IGS, very similar to other polls we've seen, the top 2 candidates are Steve Hilton, a Republican, Sheriff Bianco, a Republican. And the Democrats, again, this order is pretty similar to what we've seen in other polls: Swalwell, Porter, Steyer, Becerra, Villaraigosa. How do you pronounce the mayor's name? Mahan?
Mahan, yeah.
They're all very big undecided, but they're all flailing. And what I'm hearing from Democrats is our field's not great. There's no one people are excited about, no one that people see as sort of breaking away from the pack. So Kevin, how endangered are Democrats here in March to not having a candidate in the finals at this point?
Fairly endangered, right? And that field, to your point, has been pretty relatively, static in terms of that polling. We're 68 days out, or 60 days out today from ballots dropping. That's both an eternity in politics and a very short amount of time in politics in terms of changing that narrative. And Mahan is out there now, that the San Jose mayor. He just did the Daily Show. Again, he got in this race a little later. I'm hopeful that he we'll get more traction and attention. He's got a lot of support from the tech bros out there, but we'll see what happens in 60 days.
Trisha, if any of the Democrats were to break away from the pack, who would it be? Who's got the potential to make the best chance to make the final two at this point?
Oh, maybe Steyer. I mean, there's got to be some sort of consolidation at this point. I'm shocked that there hasn't been already. When I saw that we were going to be discussing this, Mark, I thought, oh no, don't bring attention to this because it's too good to be true. Let's stick with how as we are. But I know that this is in June, and so I think there's going to be consolidation. I mean, whether it be Swalwell or Porter, I can't see them both sticking in it.
And let's not forget, it was Democrats that pushed for this top two. Past the post thing that we might get screwed by.
The dangerous dynamic to me for Democrats, besides where we are in the status quo and all the polling, is they're all weak and they're all so vulnerable to opposition research. And so at some point, the Democrats are going to start hitting each other to try to drive down the Democrats because they don't have enough money to drive down the Republicans too. And they have to assume that if they can rise up, they'll make the final two. So once you start seeing negative Democrat on Democratic action, and we've seen some already, the Democrats are trying to drive Swalwell, the putative Democratic frontrunner, out of the race for residency. I think it's going to be very brutal. I think you're going to see money spent to kill Democrats.
And to Trish's point, Steyer has that money to do that.
Correct.
And he will spend it.
Yep.
When is too late? When do you guys think is too late for them to not consolidate or someone to drop out?
I mean,
that's a good question.
Probably the last couple of weeks, but let's see who raises enough money to actually be on statewide TV at the end, right? Steyer will have that, but it's a lot to be on statewide TV, as you all know. So I'll be curious to see if people just drop out because they don't have money. But I think even with consolidation, as long as there's four of them in, you could still see the two Republicans as the top two.
And they really haven't been spending. I don't think they've been spending. Hilton or the sheriff. No. Trish, go ahead. One more.
But to that point too, when are ballots printed? When are people still on the ballot? When is that removable?
Yeah. Good question. We'll look into that. That's a good one.
I know they go out in 60 days.
Yep. Quick word from a sponsor, and then to your questions, please raise your hand if you want in on the conversation. If you're starting something new, a business, online business, a podcast, anything, and you want to get your idea out there and get a chance to make money off of it, consider using Shopify. Shopify.com/Mark. For $1 a month as a trial offer, you can use the platform used by people all over the country. 10% of e-commerce is done over Shopify. That's a lot. And Shopify, easy to use, a lot of ready-to-use templates, AI-powered tools, 24-hour customer service. It's time to turn your what-ifs into, hate that sound, dollars with Shopify. Shopify, right now, sign up. Go to shopify.com/Mark. You'll sign up. They'll give you a $1 per month trial to see if you can make it work for you the way it's worked for so many others to start and grow your business. Everything's under one roof: inventory, payments, analytics, marketing, all under one roof. So right now, do yourself a favor. Go to shopify.com/Mark and make a bunch of money. All right, time for your questions for Trish and for Kevin. Please raise your hand. Tell us where you are and what's on your mind for the group. Holly Olson, first time raising her hand. Great role model for all those who've never raised their hand. Holly, unmute. Step one, tell us where you are.
Holly.
Tell us where you are, Holly.
Thank you. I'm in Santa Monica, California.
Santa Monica, beautiful place. One of the most beautiful places in the world. Welcome in. Tell us what's on your mind for Tricia and for Kevin, and thank you for being part of Two-Way.
I work in financial markets. I actually use this program to sort of cover my political side in terms of the knowledge I need to manage our portfolio for all the pension funds and foundations we manage money for.
Can we use that for a commercial, Holly?
I was going to say
that's Holly, golden.
Holly, you're in our next promo reel. Thank you for that.
Yeah, right here.
There you go.
So for us, for me, the question we're kind of grappling with, and we don't understand politically, because on the financial side, I will explain to you that we are generally energy independent. We actually export refined oil-based product, so gasoline and so forth. We actually are exporters. Natural gas, we're massive exporters. And so I understand the global security aspect of being in Iran, but I think this focus on opening up the strait is really not our problem. In fact, there's a lot of research going on around right now where if you look at Brent crude, which is the sort of non-US prices of oil per barrel versus WTI, which is the US exported price or the domestic price per barrel, the spread, the difference between the two is the widest it's been in years since WTI. We were not able to export it in the past, but now we can. So when you think about it, all the government, I mean, the president has to do, or the administration has to do, is ban exports again, like we did 40 years ago. We hadn't been able to export oil until actually a couple decades ago, I think. So I don't understand why it's our problem to open up the Strait of Hormuz, because
Right.
Iran is controlling who goes through and who doesn't, right?
Right.
China, oil headed for China is allowed to go, but oil headed for our allies are not allowed to go. None of it's coming here.
Right.
Very
Mhm.
little of it coming here. Fertilizer, we have our own fertilizer.
Right. So, Holly, I'll say a couple things and then turn it over to Tricia and Kevin. First of all, the reason it's closed now and hurting not just China, but Japan and other Asian allies is because of the United States and Israel. So if we don't open it, it's not clear how we'll open. Richard Haass, former head of the Council on Foreign Relations, has a really interesting idea today, which is to form an international coalition to say to the Iranians, nothing gets through unless everything gets through, and to basically blockade the Iranian, the ones that are given permission. Here's his from his Substack: the Strait of Hormuz must be open for all or closed to all. That's a kind of an elegant solution. The first time I've heard that, but there's the matter of American credibility, and there's also the question of if Iran can close it at any time and disrupt the world economy, even if though it doesn't directly affect the United States, that gives them an asymmetrical power that can't stand as a matter of credibility and can't stand as a matter of America's responsibility to our allies and the world economy. So that'd be my explanation. Hold on, Holly, one second. Let Tricia and Kevin weigh in and then hear from you again. Tricia.
Holly, you clearly have a real expertise and really know your stuff. So I almost hesitate to answer, but I think a lot of people in the United States feel like you do, that this is not our problem, that this is not of our current concern, and we should be focused on domestic affairs. To that end, though, the counterpoint would be that, there is a finite amount of oil, and even if this oil isn't reaching us directly, it impacts the global market, and that's going to ultimately downstream impact us and will impact costs.
Kevin.
And I'd only add to that, and I was going to flag that Richard Haass piece too, in terms of all through or none through. You also have starting, 20 days in, some folks on the right, especially talking about the need to just stop sending our resources overseas right now and hold that back domestically. Obviously, we've talked about the strategic petroleum reserve and things like that. So I think that energy might be going forward if we continue to see gas now over $4 and things like that.
Holly, what are we missing?
So I guess what I'm asking is, we had a whole decade or so, I think the Europeans actually shut down one of their most productive natural gas fields in Netherlands. I think Angela Merkel shut down a lot of nuclear, the Green Party, I can't really understand why they would do that, but they shut down nuclear facilities in Germany when they're right next door to France, who gets a majority of their energy from nuclear. It's not an environmental thing, but my question is, why is it our responsibility to keep the Hormuz open? It should be the world's responsibility.
It is, but we started it. We caused it to be closed.
We broke it and we bought it.
And no one else can open it. And also the other thing is, it's a matter of American credibility. It's not from you're thinking in terms of economics, and in terms of the economics, you're right. we don't benefit from it being open as much as lots of other people who have a greater economic interest. But we have the greatest geopolitical both interest and responsibility now to open it, because it's pretty clear at this point, barring some dramatic change, that Iran, the mission will not be completely done, which is to say there'll be an Iranian government that's repressive and has aspirations to terrorize the neighborhood. If we leave under those circumstances and we leave it that they can close the strait whenever they want, geopolitically, it's just not acceptable.
Okay, how about the reverse? Will this give enough political cover for all of the other countries to form a coalition to keep the Strait of Hormuz open and separate itself from the security aspect of it?
Are
you asking if
destroying the nuclear weapons?
Great question.
Yeah, Trish, thoughts on that?
Oh, I think that's a great question. I don't know, as far as separating the two, I think that's going to be incredibly difficult, just given tensions there. But I mean, you might want to give strategic advice to some of these Gulf countries.
Kevin,
JP Morgan is giving a lot of advice.
Yeah.
JP Morgan
Yeah.
and Goldman Sachs are going
Yeah.
at it. So
They are.
I can send Mark some research.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Although both of them are nice enough to send me all their research. Kevin,
Oh,
No, all great points, Holly. I would just reinforce what Mark said. Only we can do this, right, in terms of the military aspect of it. No other country has the resources to do this in terms of the personnel and the technology. And obviously, we talked about these 5,000-pound, bunker blasters that we're using right now on these fortified locations around the coast and things like that. But we're the only ones that can do it, certainly.
I will say this: I'm so amazed at the fact that Saudi was hit is not getting more attention, and we haven't, as far as I can tell, seen a reaction from them. They have a military. They're one of these countries, except from the Houthis, like the Chinese. They have a big military. They never use it, really, right? When we talk about where's peacekeeping in Gaza, why not the Saudis? Well, why shouldn't the Saudis help open the strait? They don't like Iran, but there's no talk of that, at least that I've heard. But I'll be curious to see if there is a coalition, whether the Saudis are involved, because anything adverse to the interests of the Iranians, they should be for. But as I said, I never hear them discussed.
And they've got the best weapons in the world because they're ours.
Exactly, and they're well trained in theory. But let's see them use it. Holly, how'd you find two-way?
Oh, it was before the election. I was just looking for some unbiased coverage, and I think, I know what it was. It was when you, Mark, broke the story on President Biden resigning.
Okay,
That
Holly,
got my attention. I think you're the best. You're the best reporter out there. So
that's very
Amen.
nice.
you break a lot of news.
My mom agrees. Please come back regularly. We love having you on.
Thank you.
Trisha, thank you for coming on. How is your retirement going for real? How are things?
I did a little skiing and things are good. Yeah.
Yeah. And can you forecast what you'll be up to, or is that still to be determined?
I won't. TBD.
Okay. You know who needs your
Having some
help?
shock.
She looks tan, ready, and rested. I will say.
I'll
Trisha, so
tell you
hashtag she's running. Hashtag running.
I'll tell you
for
who
something.
who needs your help is your old pal Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, as in cake. Vivek is not running away with the governor's race in Ohio.
No, we're back and forth from Ohio. So I'm from Cincinnati, and we're back and forth there. But I think Vivek is definitely going to pull it off. They're starting to really pour in money there. As far as it's all about TV in Ohio. It's a huge state. Amy Acton, she's kind of the Fauci of Ohio. So I think Vivek will pull it off by 4 to 5 points. John Husted versus Sherrod Brown, though, for Senate, really a race to watch.
It is indeed a race to watch. I'm going to be doing some reporting on that soon on Next Up. Let me tell you about what's coming up on Next Up later today. Ro Khanna will be my guest. James Bennett, former New York Times op-ed editor and now at The Economist. And then I've got two extraordinary political strategists to talk about everything. Vin Weber, former congressman from Minnesota. And then Kevin Walling will be my guest on Next Up. So all that will drop later today. On Two-Way tonight, this evening, special episode, this afternoon, 3 o'clock, pre-taping tomorrow's episode today. Join me for one of our periodic, sporadic conversations about 2028 with Nomi Kuntz, Alex Castellanos, and Alex Eisenstadt of Axios. 4 o'clock, the group chat, Emma Jo Morris, Nina Turner, Robbie Suave, Michael LaRosa. Join them at 4 o'clock on their new YouTube channel. 5 o'clock, regular edition of Two-Way Tonight. Ashley Etienne and Christian Davidson join me. And then tomorrow, final episode of the week on this program in 23 hours, We lose Trish and we swap in Larry, Kevin and Larry tomorrow 9 a.m. Eastern time. I'm going to jump over right now. I'm going to be late. I got to get there on Sirius XM for the second hour of the morning meeting. Thank you, Trish. Thank you, Kevin. We'll see you both soon. Have a great day, everybody. I'll see you at 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock and on Next Up.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye.